In a recent interview, Miyazaki casually dropped a massive lore bombshell. In order to access the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion, you need to defeat not only Mohg, but also Radahn,
who stood up to the swirling constellations, halting their movement in a smashing victory.
While I've seen quite a few people mention this, I don't think the community has really grappled with the implications. Now, in the base game, two of the biggest enduring mysteries involve Radahn. Why exactly did he hold back the stars? And why exactly did he and Malenia fight? Like a lot of other folks, I've come around to the idea that these two questions are actually linked. More specifically, they both tie into Miquella and the Eclipse, which was his attempt to revive Godwyn. So by halting the stars, Radahn prevented the eclipse from happening. According to the Eclipse Great Shield, the eclipsed sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. And at Castle Sol, we encounter an NPC ghost who says, "Lord Miquella, forgive me. The sun has not been swallowed. Our prayers were lacking. Your comrade remains soulless. I will never set my eyes upon it now. Your divine Haligtree." What's more, that NPC is right next to one of the hidden halves of the Haligtree medallion. And inside Castle Sol, you can find the Eclipse Hotel, which has its Ash of War, sets the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flames. We also have an NPC, another ghost, who says, "Surrender yourself to the Eclipse. Grant life to the soulless bones." But the Eclipse failed. The 1.0 version effectively confirmed that the Eclipse failed because of Radahn. The ghost on top of Castle Sol instead has this line of dialogue: "Lord Miquella, I still cannot make pilgrimage to the Haligtree. Our glorious sun remains held in thrall." Now, that is cut content, but the fact that you have to defeat Radahn to even enter the expansion makes this theory much more likely. Plus, since the Shadow of the Erdtree is going to feature Miquella, and there is so much cut content about Miquella, I could easily see them repurposing this for the expansion. In any case, major thanks to Nihilus11 for pointing this out on Reddit. Brief side note, one reason why the Star Scourge conflict can be so confounding is that Radahn holding back the stars had so many major consequences for the lands between. What's more, a person's motivations can change over time. Radahn, for instance, first wanted to learn gravity magic to ride Leonard.
Shut up, Leonard!
But later, he became motivated to challenge the stars. So even if stopping the eclipse wasn't his original intention, that could have changed over the years. And Radahn would have been highly motivated to stop Godwyn from coming back. If Godwyn were revived, he would have the strongest claim to both the throne and to Godfrey's legacy. And we know that Radahn deeply admired Godfrey. But of course, despite all of his accomplishments, Radahn could never be Godfrey's kin, unlike Godwyn. So I could easily see how Radahn, motivated by both a pragmatic desire for power and by a personal feeling of envy, would fight against Godwyn's revival. Plus, we know that George R.R. Martin loves a good succession crisis. Now, another major piece of evidence comes from the map. You can find Miquella's body inside the cocoon of the Empyrean, which is exactly underneath the spot in Caelid where Malenia and Radahn fought to a standstill. I don't think this is a mere coincidence. Malenia only wants to fight for her brother. We know that she's not interested in acquiring great runes, since she didn't take Godric's after defeating him. So for her to travel all the way from the Haligtree to Caelid, it must have been for Miquella. Now, I've seen quite a few people claim that Miquella was taken during Malenia's campaign, since it would have left Miquella unguarded. But as Nihilus11 pointed out in another great post, Mohg is associated with phantom invaders. It would not have been a problem for Mohg to sneak inside and kidnap Miquella before disappearing. And during Vari's questline, we also get an item that lets us teleport from anywhere to Mohgwyn Palace, so Mohg having the ability to do the opposite would make a lot of sense. Out of all of the ruins across the lands between and below, I think Mohg chose this specific location because it was underneath Radahn's territory. Now, we are getting into a bit of unhinged speculation, but I think Mohg was trying to frame Radahn as an accomplice for Miquella's kidnapping to provoke Malenia into fighting Radahn. So to rescue Miquella, Malenia would have had to march all the way into Caelid, which would trigger a response from Radahn. And since Mohg was hiding Miquella without Radahn's knowledge, this would also ensure there could have been no diplomatic or peaceful alternative resolution. Picture this: Malenia marches all the way to Caelid and demands Radahn turn over Miquella. Radahn, quite rightly, has no idea what she's talking about, and Malenia, in response, would understandably think Radahn was lying. So this would add yet another layer of tragedy to their battle. For Mohg, the best outcome of the Battle of Ionia would have been the complete defeat of both demigods, but having Radahn and Malenia be severely weakened is an okay consolation prize. I don't have to go into why Mohg would want Malenia defeated, but the game also heavily implies that Mohg wants Radahn dead as well. You can summon Okina, one of Mohg's bloody fingers, at the Radahn festival, but an even bigger piece of evidence comes from the end of Selen's questline. If you side with Selen and defeat Jerren, you get this message: Bloody Finger vanquished. So just to reiterate, Jerren, the man who organized
a war festival honoring the last battle and death of General Radahn,
was also a bloody finger working for Mohg. And since this is a major NPC quest, I don't think this was an accident. FromSoft could have used the generic Invader Vanquished to pop up instead. As for why Mohg would want to kill Radahn, I have two theories. First, Mohg is associated with the Formless Mother, who is connected to the Blood Star, so perhaps Radahn was also holding back the power of the Blood Star, which in turn would have weakened Mohg. Second, from Mohg's remembrance, we know that he wanted to raise Miquella to full godhood, and wished to become his consort, taking the role of monarch. But no matter how much of his bloody bedchamber he tried to share, he received no response from the young Empyrean. Now, I wonder if Mohg was unsuccessful because Miquella, like Ranni, had his fate held in the stars, and in the expansion, Miquella does divest himself of his Empyrean flesh, again, just like Ranni. Finally, I think there's another reason why we need to defeat Radahn. From the interviews with Miyazaki, we know that the Land of Shadow has been physically disconnected from the lands between, and is concealed by a veil. But as Radahn argued in a great video, it's quite likely that on the map, the Land of Shadow is hidden in the ocean that sits inside the shadow of the Erdtree. Meanwhile, it's also quite possible that the veil we see in the trailer is being held up by the Divine Towers. I'd like to go one step further. Since the Divine Towers are adorned with meteorites, I wonder if Radahn's gravity magic was also being used to prop up the veil, and with his defeat, the veil droops, making it possible for a maidenless tarnished to penetrate inside. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know what yins think. What's nice about this type of speculation is we'll find out in 4 months if I'm right or wrong.